And hello everyone, how's it going? My name is Henry and welcome to this really interesting video today. We're going to be talking about rebuilding the aviation industry into a greener, new, well, after all this virus and everything, we're going to be creating a much safer and environmentally friendly aviation industry. So, quick intro to this presentation. I recently took a math course and we had to choose a environmental issue and we had to graph it and all this stuff. I obviously chose aviation. Now, we're going to be talking about today replacing pretty much all combustion fuel, so Jet A and 100 low lead jet aircraft, so pretty much 99.999% of all aircraft out there, with battery driven aircraft and fossil fuel-less aircraft. So again, this is a new trend that's starting in aviation. There's a lot of articles about this, but today we're going to be talking about why and how to do it, as well as all the sourcing and everything else is at the back of this presentation. So if you want to see all the data and articles, they will be there. So let's start off. So basically, what are hydrogen aircraft? So pretty much just starting off, over 900 million tons of carbon is produced every year in 2019 onwards. So again, this is a little bit out of date now because of the pandemic, but pretty much before that, we were doing almost 1 billion tons of carbon, primarily from aircraft alone. So again, you have this cute little regional jet here, and these two engines are producing a lot of carbon, for the atmosphere. However, if we switch over to hydrogen, or in this case, battery power, we can literally make that zero. All right, so we can literally take these two guys using these wonderful fuel tanks full of fuel, and we can make it zero carbon production. Now, of course, it'll take carbon to produce aircraft still and manufacturing, everything else, but for the actual over 900 million tons of carbon that are being produced by jet aircraft and general aviation aircraft as well, we can literally make that zero in the next few decades. Now, we're going to be talking about how to do that. Now, like I mentioned before, this is for a math course, so I'm just going to briefly describe this. Don't worry about this if you never took advanced functions. Over here, C represents the amount of carbon emissions global aviation is going to produce. The S in this formula over here, that's pretty much our starting data. So our data begins in 1990. And the rest you don't really have to worry about. You'll see these factors in the next slide, but pretty much it comes down to this. Here we go. This is the important page. So using data, which again you can access at the end of this presentation here, we can see that we aren't actually on a linear upward slide. We're actually on an exponential, so it's getting worse. You can see the trend line coming up here, and we can see that carbon emission is becoming more and more prevalent as society becomes more, as we become more invested in international aviation, especially for cargo and moving people around the world. So as you can see, we're approaching this 1 billion mark pretty closely. So again, more realistically, it's bloody PowerPoint. It's more going to be like this because of COVID-19 is right here. But we're going to get to that in a second. But yeah, it's exponential. It's going to get worse. And of course, with climate change being what it is, we can't continue on this trend. So how and what can we do to see what we can do here? So based on my formula on future modeling here, we can see our lovely little graph here. So bottom, of course, is in years. So this is 50 years. And pollution. So this is 1 billion tons right here. So using our formula, we can calculate that, of course, it is an exponential function. So we are going to be well over 1 billion tons by 2027, and it's absolutely crazy. And it's only going to get worse if we continue on this trend. So hopefully after the pandemic, we can switch this trend. So again, notable restrictions on our data. So two things. Firstly, the data only accounts for 1990s after. So again, in the 50s and 60s, jet aircraft were highly inefficient. But of course, jet aircraft are a lot more efficient these days. But with that being said, aviation is a lot more prevalent in today's modern world. And secondly, of course, is the pandemic, this big guy. We don't really know what it's going to be like aviation-wise, how long it can take. I have one source that says that it might even take a decade because we're going to see a lot more. We're not going to have a lot more wide body aircraft anymore. We're going to have a lot of single aisle aircraft right now, just because of the regional and restart from aviation. Now, the good news is that we can rebuild aviation very, very green. So the government and multi-billion-dollar investments are already creating hydrogen and generally powered aircraft around the world. Right now, this is a current technology. Future Air out in Vancouver, British Columbia, they have their own. I believe it was a Beaver or Otter. I can't remember which one. It's running completely on batteries now. Airbus and multiple other companies are investing in hydrogen aircraft. So pretty much, you have like a Q400-like aircraft that runs purely on power cells in the European Union right now. Obviously, it's not meant for passenger operations yet, but it is in the near future. So pretty much, if you continue to look after these technologies and eventually you start to replace new aircraft with these technologies, even 10% every year or 5%, whatever we do, it's going to be able to get done before the 2050 timeline, right? And when we're talking about like the Paris agreements, everything else, have our little graph here. So again, red is no action. So again, we clearly go above that 1 billion mark, almost 2 billion by 2055 here. If we do starting today, which is probably inaccurate because of course climate change, it's already begun. We have the pandemic, and technology is still being developed. But if we did a 10% placement, we could get to net zero by 2045. Correction, sorry, I meant 2035. But only doing 5% will bring us to 2045, which is probably a lot more realistic considering we're still working on technology, everything else. And the important thing to know is that both of these scenarios I modeled both start in 2025. So that gives us another 4 years to start replacing aircraft at 5% or 10% a year. And this replacement includes both new aircraft as well as old. So it's the total fleet, worldwide fleet composition of both general aviation as well as commercial aircraft. Unfortunately, you're not going to probably see that in military aircraft just because, of course, the needs. But if it's something that we're able to do, we can do it by all means. So pretty much basic conclusion here is that if we can switch from traditional combustion fuel to hydrogen, we can become a net zero carbon emitting industry. Incredibly important. Now, this is the data set I have. You can see my actual source in the source document at the end of the presentation. But as you can see, it starts in 1990. It actually ends in 2019. But you can see, even for yourself, even I in the data. So like the date, year, and the carbon emissions. These are my references that you can reference yourself. And you can have a look at everything else. As usual, just have to say all images are CC Creative Commons. But yeah, so this is a really exciting time for aviation and technology in general. We're seeing a lot more green sources of energy. So hopefully we can continue on a greener path for aviation. Now, I know that this was a little bit of a different video that I've kind of done for this channel before. This is just cool for a little presentation here. Again, like and subscribe, guys. Again, this is hydrogen aircraft / energy efficient aircraft. Again, everyone, I hope you're all doing safe. But it's true. Aviation, while it is quote unquote only 2 or 3% of carbon emissions, we do have to become more environmentally friendly. And it's not even just becoming neutral emitters, like planting trees and everything. It really does come down to investing in greener hydrogen or just energy storage in general. So like whether it's only for regional airliners or if we go full haul and do full hydrogen and battery power. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. Do you think that within the next 20, 30 years we can do this? Do you think it's realistic? Do you not think it's realistic? Let us know in the comments below. Let's have a nice civilized discussion about this, because I personally think as an industry insider that it is incredibly important to adopt, especially once we start rebuilding after the pandemic. But anyways, again, I hope you are all doing safe. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Fly safe, and as always, happy landings. Thanks, everyone.